Well, hello and good morning, house guests. Thank you for joining me this morning. I might be a little late, late to the party as always, but I am here to talk about Old Hag Syndrome. And of course, I have a story for that. So, what is Old Hag Syndrome or sleep paralysis? Has anybody had any experiences? I do have to say that my story is not a personal story, it's actually my dad's story. But I think the closest that I have come to um like a sleep paralysis situation was when I was younger. I actually woke up tied into my bed. Like the sheets were wrapped around me, and I guess I might have had a very difficult night or a very wild night with nightmares. I'm guessing maybe I saw a horror movie or something. I don't know, but I definitely could not move out of my bed. And it actually took some effort, and I was very concerned at that time. But this story actually involves my dad. So let's go into what Old Hag Syndrome is, or otherwise known as sleep paralysis. So, Old hag or sleep paralysis is a cultural interpretation of sleep paralysis where individuals feel a heavy weight on their chest, often attributed to supernatural entity, typically an old woman or hag. So then this is just a simple like Google thing. Actually being searched, sleep paralysis is a phenomenon that occurs when a person is either falling asleep or waking up and temporarily experiences an inability to move or speak. So basically, what happens is your mind is waking up faster than your body. Does that make sense? So your mind is awake, but your body is still asleep. So I guess you could say one part of your brain is activated and the other part is still not activated. So it's like it's not a smooth rhythm that you've got. I don't know how better I could say that. I'm confused and it's 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm so sorry, but I wanted to get this live done for you guys because I wanted it to get out. But anyways, I might be getting some old hag syndrome in a minute. But so we continue. The condition can be accompanied by vivid hallucinations, often leading to feelings of fear and anxiety. It is a common experience, with studies indicating that around 30% of the population has experienced at least one episode in their lifetime. So, and I kind of laughed because it was kind of comical at the time, but also if you put it all together, it's quite terrifying. So, my dad, it turns out, was experiencing old hag syndrome. And the way that I found out was he came home one day and he said that the doctor diagnosed him with old hag syndrome. And then he said, "Do you think that I'm going to?" I'm not going to say the full word because I don't want to put the bad energy out there. But he basically was fearful of a very negative and scary outcome. So I was kind of perplexed and surprised that my dad would keep this from me, considering that I was working in healthcare and he often had a lot of healthcare oriented questions. So I would have thought that maybe he would have told me sooner about this experience. Um, Especially when I was bringing up feelings of just dread. This was around the time of the shadow people and just chaos in our life and just like seems just like a series of just stressful and negative events that happen to us. And, you know, I guess that would have been succinct with the old hag coming into play. But he basically described his situation as when he said that he was frozen and that he couldn't move in the middle of the night, which I thought was really strange because he was a truck driver who used to work nights and he was still actively working. So hearing that he couldn't really wake up or move, you know, it was kind of scary. So I was like, you couldn't move? And he said, yeah. And sometimes he said that he could not breathe, like it felt like someone was sitting on him. And he said that one time it looked like there was a witch on top of him. And he didn't want to say anything, to me at least, because he wanted to make sure that he wasn't full-fledged crazy and then tell me. He wanted to make sure that, and also he also wanted to make sure that he wasn't going to you know, have a negative outcome, because he was thinking that maybe this might be someone who's coming from for him, kind of like, um I don't know how to say this, but it was like an old legend that my tias told me when I was in Mexico about the banshee. And this banshee was an elderly lady, and she would wail and cry. And I remember swimming in this little laguna, um, very afraid of swimming in this laguna because a fish swam next to my foot. And so I thought I was going to get eaten by something, or pulled down by something. But, anyways, I got stuck swimming and I just had to stay there because I was with my primas. Um, and then when the sun was setting, my tias started getting a little bit excited, and they basically told me the banshee is going to come out looking for her children. And if we're out, she is going to come after us. So we need to leave before the sun sets. And I think that might have been the most scariest superstitious thing I've ever heard from them, other than the fact that we have to run into the casa because the scorpions were going to come in and chase us, and we needed to get in right away before they came in because we had a season of scorpions all over the place in our house. It seemed like on the walls, in the sinks. It's, oh my goodness, it was, anyways, different story. Again, ADD got off track. Paranormal Old Hag Syndrome. So my dad says, said that he didn't, but he basically went to the doctor, and the doctor said that he had this Old Hag Syndrome and sleep paralysis, and there was basically not a concern. And so my dad felt a little bit better about it, and then he told me. And again, this is the time of very negative vibes. And I think the activity subsided, at least I want to say subsided in that house, like after we saged it. And thankfully, my parents, at least my dad, heavily believed in saged. My mom, she believed in the paranormal, but she never cleansed the house. She would just tell you to be strong and to tell you whatever it was to go away. So sometimes after I watch a horror movie, I would get the heebie jeebies, and then it was time for bed. And then you get that feeling that something's watching you. And ironically, this was the time when my closet was opening and closing. So maybe I just energized the ick feeling. But she would be like, oh, if anything's bothering you, you just tell it to go away. Which, you know what? I don't think ever worked for me, ever. Let me go to the chat. Do you guys have any stories of sleep paralysis or old hag syndrome that you want to share? If you do, you can share it in the chat. or you could email me at angelholdings84@gmail.com and email me any of your paranormal stories, and I'll be happy to share them. If you have, if you want to come on our show, we'd love to have you, and you can share your paranormal experiences. I always want to meet people who have paranormal experience, especially if they grew up with it or if they have kids who are experiencing paranormal activity, like my children have experienced paranormal activity. So I always want to find that other parent, just to kind of have like a club to be like, hey, is this really crazy? Because sometimes you're like, oh my God, this is really crazy. So why don't we just hop over to Reddit and see what Reddit has to say about Old Hag Syndrome and sleep paralysis? Okay, here's one story. I've seen the Old Hag. It was so very vivid. I would say it was more like a hallucination than a dream because it feels so real. I woke up paralyzed in my bed, same as you. I could only move my eyes around the room and not move anything else. She was an old and ugly, with a pointy nose and messy, dark, long hair. Looked like a really old, wrinkled, and ugly stereotypical witch. See, that's exactly what my dad said. And for the life of me, if we're all experiencing the same thing, is it paranormal? Or is it a medical diagnosis? Because you would at least think that there would be some deviations from person to person about this entity, wouldn't you think? Like, I don't know. I'd want to be choked up by like Barbie or sushi or something, Like, why can't I hallucinate, going out eating a chocolate cake? Just a thought rather than, going out with the stereotypical pointy nose witch. Anyways, back to the story. Sidetracked again. ADD. But she ran around the side of the bed and came at me like super fast, ran towards me, then leaning over me, she started scratching at my face, frantically clawing at me with long nails and really fast. You see, I don't think my dad described any of that. I think he just said that she was like looking into his face, like creepily is the vibe, or at least the picture of my head. The picture in my head is that I got this old witch person sitting on my dad's chest, just looking over him creepily, just staring closely into his face, getting closer and closer as my dad is screaming. But since we lived together, I never heard screams. That didn't happen, but in my head, that's what happened. Back to the story. I was absolutely terrified, but I couldn't feel any pain. It was like she couldn't get at me, but she was trying so hard. I was horrified she was going to be able to. Then suddenly she was gone and I can move. What gets me is that it wasn't like working up where your surroundings are or waking up where your surroundings are different. It was just like she vanished, but I was still in my room, everything the same. So I think I was awake, but like in a limbo, like my mind woke up, but my body hadn't, except my eyes. I don't know why, but why seen an old hag? I've never heard of this concept before it happened, but I Googled paralyzed and see an old witch, and the old hag thing came up. I'm not normally scared of witches. So, like, why would I see a witch if I'm terrified? Like, why not a bear or a monster or an alien or something? The fact we all see an old lady doesn't make any sense. Anyone else have her attack you or scratch at you like that? Or like I did? Dude, that is heavy. See, why would, like, really, a unicorn, right? Or maybe a stereotypical clown would be the classic one to go to. Or Freddy Krueger, doesn't he come after you in dreams? Why isn't it old Freddy Krueger syndrome? Here's another story. My experience. I was staying in a hotel room for a few months for work. No weird experiences until after someone told me the building was haunted. Never had sleep paralysis before this, if this is even considered sleep paralysis. I was dreaming that an old woman with long gray hair covering her face was next to me in my bed. I remember being scared and asking, "Can I help you?" out loud. I woke up and my eyes adjusted to the dark, but there was a lampshade where I pointed or where I pictured the woman to be. You know what? I will say that I have woken up similar to this, but expecting a male or a intruder all dressed in black being in front of me. Not like a shadow person, but like an actual person all dressed in black. Think of Kim Kardashian, full dress, face, everything, but in male dress. Um, and I had actually watched the first Paranormal Activity movie, which scared the bejeebies out of me. So thanks, Remy, for that movie date because one, I could not walk at the time. I had sciatica because I was very pregnant. So I was dragging my leg, right? And I also had stairs. So picture me going home and being like, yeah, this is the perfect scenario for a serial killer. And also, there happened to be all of this horrific news about the baby snatchers, and you know the ones that I'm talking about. So, this totally reminds me of that horrific experience. It was my, and I'll admit, it was my room. Everything was in its place, but there was this person there. And then when I actually really, really woke up, there was nobody there. It was It was the most like terrifying experience, you know. And I slept with the lights on because I was already scared because I was, again, almost broken, pregnant, single, and alone. Of course, I was on a military base at the time, but still, there's some people that you just don't want to deal with, you know, because you never know. Everybody's always stay safe. Lock your doors. Now, let's get back to the story. I'm so sorry. ADD squirrel. Not my experience. Oh, okay, and it continues. Not my experience. Someone I worked with stayed in the same hotel building. He said he was dozing off, or no, he was dozing right after work one day and was awakened by burning scratches on his legs. Like cat scratches where the blood kind of oozes, but it's a thin scratch. Another time, he stayed in the newer, larger building right next to the older haunted buildings. He was dozing again, but he said he got out of bed and looked to the front door. He saw an old woman with long hair covering her face, like I saw. He blinked and she was in his face. Oh, you guys, I am so scared right now, and I'm in a full house. Oh my God, where is my doggy? Does anybody else get creeped out by reading scary stories? Like, I honestly believe that this happened. Like, I can feel it in my soul. Okay. She raised her arm and pointed to the mirror on the wall and said, "That's how we go room to room." Oh my gosh, guys. Okay, so I guess in my dad's case, he had the master bedroom and there was a mirror. And I don't think he ever kept that door closed. I think he always kept it open. Oh my God. This one freaked me out because I had already had my experience and I didn't tell him. His description of the woman was so similar. Whoa. Well, here's another one that is a little bit different. So this one is, sorry, also had another sleep paralysis, more like a dream in the haunted building where I had a monster. So this one he describes as monster instead of a witch. Jump on my chest while I was in bed. Also, in the same building, my ex-husband woke up out of a sleep panicked, saying someone was in our room. My side of the bed, dude, dude. Oh my God. Why does it have to be their side of the bed? Like, can you imagine that? Hey, honey, why are you afraid? Something's next to you. Oh my God. Oh my God. Still freaked out. With a flashlight. We've used the Ghost Radar app. You know what? I've used that app too. And there's actually another one. I will give it to you. It's the one where we had to do with the Sacramento haunting. I'll give you that app once I find it in another video. So they used the Ghost Radar app a lot in that building, and it was always interesting. There wasn't a follow up. Um, So I wanted to see if there was any other stories that had something other than a witch. And the rest of these stories are just an old hag. Um Stories. They're not, unicorns or, cake, sushi, drowning in sushi. I think that's how I want to go. Just drowning in sushi. And yeah, all of these stories are about an old witch. So, what is your story? Do you guys have any stories that you would like to share? Comment, subscribe, like. Thank you for joining us on Haunted House Calls. Let me check the chat just to make sure that we don't have anybody else. No. All right, guys. Well, again, as always, don't forget to email us stories. We're online at angelholdings84@gmail.com, and we'll catch you on the other side. Thanks, house guests.